like to see that, and glad to see so many of you back here today as we preview the day ahead. Tim and Sean, gentlemen, good morning.
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 Glad to have
Labor Day.
glad to have you here. Yeah, glad to have everybody here, whether you're watching on YouTube live or here on the two-way platform. Great to have you. If you're part of the two-way platform here and you'd like to be part of the conversation, please raise your hand, whether you've been part of the conversation or not before. But especially if you haven't, we'd like always to get new people in. We'll talk about the day ahead, and then we're going to bring you all in for your questions and comments. Pretty light day, despite the hype about Labor Day when the Republican ticket didn't do anything. Today, pretty much nobody's doing anything. Donald Trump has no public events. He does have a town hall on Fox tomorrow, so maybe he's preparing for that. We'll talk about that. Vice President has no public events. She's going to New Hampshire tomorrow. We're going to talk about that. Waltz, Vance, and Emhoff, no public events that we know about. President Biden is doing an event at the White House at 2:00, kicking off something called the Investing in America content series. I don't remember Eisenhower doing any content series. We'll figure out that. And then the White House briefings at 2:30 right after the president's event. There's a new Harris ad that we're going to take a look at. And we're going to talk about, as we try to do, about the future. And guys, I want to start with talking about why nothing's happening today. Is it because they're doing debate prep? Is it, I mean, we're not that far from election day. Philadelphia is pretty close. Georgia's close to where Trump lives. Like, why not do an event or at least announce you're doing some radio or some local? Like, what's going on? Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, sometimes you do take a down day, particularly before a debate, to do some prep. I think that's totally normal. Obviously, you have 63-ish days to burn, 62 days to burn. So every day matters. I think like this week's schedule, the interesting story is, yes, we'll talk about Kamala Harris in New Hampshire, but also I don't think Trump has a public event until Saturday in Wisconsin.
He is doing the town hall.
He's doing this town hall, but like we're not going to see him at a public rally until then.
Yeah. Sean, why is no even the running mates don't have debates come for a while, so if ever, so why are there no events?
I think JD's doing a ton of interviews. That being said, I think it's a valid question. I mean, to your point, it's one thing not to do them. It's another thing not to say, here's what we're doing. We've got a series of fundraising calls or we're doing, and I think both sides are making a mistake. It's easier with Harris, with all due respect, I think, because I think a lot of people expect her and she's communicated that she's doing debate prep. Trump inherently doesn't like to say he's doing debate prep, and that might be part of it. We can get into that in just a moment, but I would just say I agree with you that at this point in this final stretch, you need to be telling people what you're doing, even if it's just internal, so that they know that you're active.
Yeah. All right. So the vice president's going to New Hampshire tomorrow. I tweeted about this yesterday, and people said, well, Trump went to Montana. Well, Trump didn't go to Montana because he thought he was going to lose. He went to Montana to help a Senate candidate because they're trying to win as many Senate seats as they can.
Went to Montana for revenge.
Yeah, exactly. Tim, what besides the campaign feeling like they need to shore up New Hampshire, what would be a reason for Kamala Harris to go campaign in New Hampshire?
I mean, my bet would be fundraising or some meeting, right? Like, you are a stone's throw. You're close to Boston. You're in a region where you can dip in and do either a fundraiser or a one-on-one meeting.
I got to interrupt you. She might have a fundraiser in Boston. They haven't announced that yet. But even if she does, it's not like you go campaign in Connecticut or if you're in Washington, you campaign in Maryland. Like it still takes a couple hours minimum.
Sure.
Well, but the bottom line is you do the opposite. You go to Boston to reach people in New Hampshire. You don't go to New Hampshire to reach people to have a fundraiser in Boston.
Well, I mean, maybe there's also like a local market question, and to the degree that it matters that you're holding an event in New Hampshire, does it break through nationally still, so long as you're holding an event? So I mean, it's a good open question, like why this is happening. I do think the answer is probably a fundraiser. But I also don't think the answer is that the state is like slipping away or there's some concern there. She's in polling, been over 50% there. There's a Boston Globe story, a very interesting story about like this quote unquote leading volunteer of the Trump campaign that has basically told people to go to Pennsylvania if you're thinking about going to volunteer in New Hampshire, that they have one field office there. So I don't think it's a swing state issue.
It's weird timing. It's weird timing that Globe story popped.
It is,
right? I mean, I don't get it. But Sean, like here's what I understand. Like the Trump campaign, one of their top spokespeople is from New Hampshire. They don't seem to be making a big deal about it. I saw some mentions to her New Hampshire trip in like some of the morning newsletters, political newsletters. They just sort of said she's going to New Hampshire. Why am I the only one who's wondering why she's going?
It's not just New Hampshire. I said yesterday Doug Emhoff was in Virginia. You've got someone going to Minnesota. I think that there's a question. My only thought is I think that they're scared of the ghost of Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin. They are worried that there are some polls. I mean, there's a couple polls that show Virginia tied. I'm not sure I put a ton of stock into them, but I have a feeling that they'd rather be making the case that they're expanding the map. And that they're keeping things off the board. The last thing they need to do, if you can make one trip and avoid having to buy the New Hampshire market, which is essentially Boston, maybe that's a smart use of resources. But I do think it's making people call into question what's really happening. They're seeing something. You don't waste that much time going to New Hampshire for no reason. You don't send the second gentleman to Newport News, the Hampton Roads area in Virginia if you don't see something. There's something that they see that's causing them to burn time, because time and money are the greatest assets any campaign has.
I agree. All right, let's put up this list. I ask everybody two questions. One is, what's Harris's best of the 4 Sunbelt states? And then another way of asking the question is, rank the 7 states in order of most likely to least likely that Harris will win. Okay, here's one of my sources, a very smart person who's kind of an objective analyst. Here's his order: most likely to least likely. And what you see here is that Georgia is 3rd on this person's list. Now, I'd probably flip Wisconsin and Michigan, but Georgia is 3rd. So, Tim, what do you think of the order of this list? Would you change the order? And what are the implications of this order?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is. I don't. Again, I think with the caveat for this discussion that all of these states that we are talking about are like in margin of error right now in state by state polling. I think this ordering is interesting. I would flip Wisconsin and Michigan as well. I would also look, these are all very, very close. So I don't say this with like the highest degree of this is absolutely going to happen, but I would actually put Pennsylvania 3rd because I think they are going to invest a lot of resources there. And I would put Nevada next, then Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. I think Nevada people view as it's like, you know, slipped away even because they saw those numbers while Biden was at the top of the ticket. I think she has solidified a lot of the base in Nevada that you know, younger voters, Black voters, Latino voters that are coming home. And polling there is always bad. So I put Nevada actually the same spot where it is on this poll, but I would go Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina to end it out.
John?
I actually largely agree with Tim on a lot of the analysis, and the premise being that this is a big car crash, and the question is which one is a little ahead. So I agree with Tim. I'd put Wisconsin ahead of Michigan. I agree with him. I'd move Pennsylvania to 3rd, so it's Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I agree with Nevada there. I agree with Arizona there. I would have moved Pennsylvania up between Nevada and Pennsylvania. Move down, so then Georgia and North Carolina at the end. So yes, North Carolina, but I would flip Pennsylvania and Georgia.
John and I have the same order. So we agree.
Okay, so you guys think the blue wall states are the top 3?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure even the Biden campaign would, the Harris campaign would agree with you. Just so you know. But be that as it may. All right. We're going to get folks in a second, please. If you'd like to get in, please raise your hand. I want to show you a brand new Harris ad on the economy and get you guys to play theater critic and say what you think.
We all know costs are too high, but while corporations are gouging families, Trump is focused on giving them tax cuts. But Kamala Harris is focused on you.
Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
She'll make groceries more affordable by cracking down on price gouging. And she'll cut housing costs by taking on corporate speculators. Middle-class families build America. We need a leader who has their back.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Sean, you first. What do you think?
I think it's a good ad. I mean, I think that it gives if you sort of suspend disbelief for a little bit and forget that she's vice president and been part of the Harris-Biden administration. But is it if you're just watching this for the first time, you haven't been engaged in, I mean, it sells her well. I'll give her credit for that. I think it gives a lot to push back on. And this gets back to how the Trump campaign is effectively responding to her. I think this gets to this bigger issue of them saying she's been part of this administration. She's been a key leader. Why has she waited this long? Day one was 3.5 years ago. That being said, is it a well-crafted ad that gets to the right issues? Yes.
Tim.
Yep, I agree. I think it's a well-done ad. And I would just say, this is the line of messaging. And I think we saw Tim Walz lean into this a little bit yesterday. But this ad does it obviously more explicitly in a 30-second package, is the contrast between tax cuts for the wealthy and well-connected for big corporations versus a policy that's focused on the middle class, that's focused on price gouging, that's focused on bringing the cost of living down. That is a message that we've seen always test well for Democrats, whether it was during Trump trying to pass his tax cuts package or anytime during election season. So it's smart for them to hammer. It's got a little bit of a populist streak in there.
I just want to be clear, right? That I think that this is a good ad for her, right? I mean, if I would, but it also, like, again, the price gouging stuff we have talked about in the past, the idea that she's been, I mean, there's a lot to attack on this. But if I'm trying to be objective as to is it a good ad, I'll give them credit for that. But I think that it is a bit ironic that they're attacking stuff that they're in charge and haven't dealt with.
So she includes in here the thing about lowering grocery prices that's just been widely derided by a lot of economists and even by a lot of Democrats. There's no price to pay for that. You can just throw that in there and nobody's going to care. Right?
But test well.
I mean, somewhat rhetorically.
Walk down the street, ask somebody if they want lower grocery prices. They're going to be like, yes. And so does it test well? Yes. Is it realistic? No.
I mean, I will just say, like, when that criticism came out of this plan, like a day later, the CEO of Kroger admitted that they were taking advantage of inflation and raising prices. I know the pushback has been like many grocery chains have a very small profit margin. And so, like, what would you actually be able to do there without causing a lot of problems? But I think to Sean's point, this is what people feel, right? This is how they feel. They feel that prices are going, grocery prices are too high. Who's going to do something for me? And this ad tells you who.
All right, one last question on advertising, and then we're going to bring you in. And folks, again, if you'd like to be part of the conversation here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. So lots of reporting today out there about outside groups who are going to be running ads. And as many people on this session know, if you're not a campaign, you pay higher prices to run ads, but you can also raise money in bigger chunks. And so there's going to be lots of those ads. Tim, if you're on a campaign, obviously you want all the help you can get, but are you looking for the outside ads to make a big difference? We see a lot of the outside ads on the right going to go after immigration. The left, the anti-Trump ads are on all sorts of things. But what are you hoping to do if you're the campaign? What are you hoping to see from the outside ads that you can't do yourself?
Yeah. I mean, generally, those outside ads have a little bit more freedom to be negative. I mean, I think not a lot of voters make a distinction between an ad that they see from a super PAC that has the candidate's name in it versus an actual campaign ad. But there is some distinction there. But the question is with those outside groups, too, I think the degree to which they help close the money gap when you get to a point where we are right now in the cycle. Obviously, like you mentioned, there's the distinction that you have to spend more as a super PAC. But like looking, for example, at the reservations of the Trump campaign versus the reservations of the Harris campaign, like the Trump campaign is behind. And so I think the question is putting, to practice your theoretical question, can those outside groups for Trump in this moment help close that gap? And we'll see where the money flows.
So look, this is all about allocation of resources. The more that they can shift ad spending to an outside group, especially on hitting them on the negative side, that they can keep for get out the vote efforts, things like that. I noted this before. Mark, you were kind enough to call this out. I played it again last night on my podcast. This interview I had with James Blair, I played a good chunk of it last night again. We call people, this is the first cycle, and this is critical to understand. This is the first presidential cycle where outside groups can coordinate with the campaign and the party committees when it comes to get out the vote. And that's going to make, it's not just the ads anymore. It is the data, the exchange of data, the targeting, all of that. And in these final days, this is going to be crucial because I think, frankly, on our side, I'm a little bit more concerned about how how they're going to utilize those groups and coordinate with them. So you're going to see a get out the vote effort, not exclusively just ads that we have in the past. And someone's going to do it really well and someone's not. And I think on November 6th and 7th, we're going to be talking about that get out the vote effort, who did it really well, who fumbled the ball. But this is going to be, as we just saw in those polls, and Tim and I agreed on, this is a car crash of states when it comes to the polling. Getting out the vote, getting out your people, figuring out those persuadables is going to be crucial to whoever wins this race.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. All right. Is it Gabriel? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle, tell us where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
I'm in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, Maya Wiley country, and I am not voting for either. I've voted Dem my whole life, and I've done a lot of soul searching to get right with this election.
Gabrielle, hold on 1 second. Is everybody else getting bad audio, or is that just me?
Yeah.
All right. Gabrielle, can you do something with your headphones? We're getting a lot of static.
How's that?
No. Look for a backup. I'm going to put you on mute. See if you can find another pair of headphones. We'll bring you back in a second because anybody from Maya Wiley country we want to hear from, but give it a try. See if you can fix it. Let's go to John. John, come on in. Remind everybody who doesn't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind today.
I'm living in the great state of Texas, and I am supporting the Republican candidate this time, which is Trump. I wanted to mention the ad was a good ad. I mean, basically, this is an election that should be a change election because pretty much everybody, Tim included, probably believes the country's in the wrong direction, at least from an economic standpoint. The big question is, if you're Harris and you want to be the change candidate, is who's to blame for that? And so that ad is all about the new boogeyman. And the boogeyman is the big bad corporate man, which has always been a really good big boogeyman for the Democrats, even though Democrats run more Fortune 500 companies than Republicans do. And that's where I think we're going to see. And the interesting thing that Sean brought up, and I'd like to hear Tim's and Sean and Mark, how is Trump going to counter that argument so that it really is a change election? I don't like where the country's going, and I'd like it to change and someone take it somewhere else.
Great question, John. Thank you. Guys, take it. Have at it.
Yeah. I mean, I do think what the argument Trump will make is that she's the vice president, right? It is the most straightforward argument. But I do think, to your point, this is also a change election. And just because she is the vice president, and we're sort of seeing this in polling, she's not necessarily viewed as the incumbent. I think because she is younger and represents a different generation, and as a result can represent some change there. I don't think she's also entirely tied to the policies of the Biden administration. I think there is some recognition that although she is part of the administration, she is not the one who has been setting policy. And I think that the third aspect of that change question is Donald Trump doesn't feel like change anymore. He felt like change in 2015. He felt new. People were curious about him. They thought he was interesting. They thought he was anti-establishment. He's been looming over the country over these elections for almost a decade now, and it's harder for him to claim that mantle.
So I think, John, you've contrasted this very well, right? The reason that they're making this ad about this big boogeyman, the corporation, is that she is the vice president and she doesn't want to be tagged with it. As Tim said, Trump wants her to be blamed for this. She wants to shift it to someone else. And it literally is going to come down to who does a more effective job of blaming which entity for it. But you put your finger exactly on what both campaigns are going to be doing in these final 60 days. As a side note, I did talk to Trump on Friday night about what this exact issue, what his goal is. He is aware of what he needs to do. I would just say that without getting into the details of it, I think he is clearly the message is, it's not just gotten through to him as if he doesn't get it. He is fully aware of what she is going to try to do and the tactics that she's going to use and what the most effective tactics for him are. And I think Tim's right. He is going to paint her as the incumbent that is responsible for this. And if he continues to do it effectively, I would just say as a side note, he really understands what's at stake in this debate in 10 days. And see, obviously the proof is in the pudding, but he is focused and I actually will be intrigued to see how this thing plays out.
John, thank you. Gabrielle, let's see if you got it back together.
How's this?
Fantastic.
Much better.
Okay.
Good enough?
All right. So you're in Brooklyn, but you're not. You're in Brooklyn, but you're not for Harris.
No, I mean, I really tried. It's been an emotional roller coaster this cycle, but she's just not, there's like no substance. Like, I'm sorry, like that interview that she did with Dana Bash was just ridiculous. I feel like she's just skirting away until like election day to see if she could just make it. I mean,
Who'd you vote for in 16 and 20?
Let me see. Well, I voted for
Clinton's?
Biden. Yeah.
What about in 16? You voted for Clinton?
Yeah, I did.
Were you
Yep.
going to vote for Biden if he were still the nominee?
Nope, absolutely not. I thought that was ridiculous. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous if he was still in the race. I thought he should have gotten out and done a primary.
I bet Tim and Sean have questions for you, but you ask yours first.
I mean, it was just really just a rant. I mean, like my biggest issue, I mean, I'm in a place where like I'll be fine economically, like whatever anyone does, like I'll be fine. It's like foreign policy scares the crap out of me. I don't trust Trump to be in active wars, and I don't trust Harris to like not be steamrolled by everyone. So
Let me ask you a question, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Tim and Sean. If you could make anybody who's constitutionally eligible president, who would you make president?
I think it's Nikki Haley or Tom Cotton's time. And I mean, that's saying from a Democrat. I don't see anyone on the Democratic side. Maybe, I mean, I like Amy Klobuchar. She's really cool.
After
yeah,
the guy who makes my
ask,
hacky sack balls, you're the most interesting person I know in Brooklyn. Sean.
I would just say, so among your friend group, the people that you talk to, the folks that you work with, is this a feeling that you feel is shared by them, or are you kind of in a boat by yourself?
I'm in an interesting friend group. So I work in publishing. So I have a lot of progressive friends, and they're all, like pro-Harris and whatnot. Then I also have a group of Israelis and Jewish Americans who are very concerned about Israel. I do not like to be a one-issue voter. I'm not going to vote on Israel alone. It's going to be other things, but I mean, that's a consideration.
But do they share your, or when you, are they, hey, Gabrielle, you got to come on over. We're all with Harris. Or do they say, gosh, I get your point. I might not vote either, or I'm considering it. But would would you or any of these people ever even consider voting for Donald Trump, or is it Harris? Is it the Dem or no one?
For my progressive friends, absolutely never Trump. And I think that they're nervous. I think that some people are excited. They like Harris. It's fun. But I think that everyone's very concerned and cranky even.
What,
Tim?
Gabrielle, what, if anything, right? If in the last 62-ish days here, Harris ran a perfect campaign for you. What could she do to win over your vote? Is it like she gives a speech on foreign relations that makes you feel more secure? Like what would that look like? Or does that?
It's funny because I mean, she's saying decent things, but I don't trust her. I don't trust that she's going to fill the cabinet with people that are going to, it's like the Philip Gordon guy makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, I think what's going to save the Democrats is the abortion thing. I think that's going to get people out. So maybe she does just need to skate by until election day. I don't know. I think for me, I would have a hard time believing that her words would match her actions if she said exactly what I wanted her to say.
And is there a possibility you change your mind between now and election day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, yes, there is. I mean, but also my thought is like, you know what, like nobody deserves my vote. These people do not deserve my vote right now. And like, I deserve better choices. And you know what, if New York goes, if New York goes, they've already lost, so they could do it without
we want you to come back regularly, and we're going to nominate you to be heads of Brooklynites for Tom Cotton. Thank you. Really interesting. Thank you.
All right.
I thought,
just as a side note, I will say Tom Cotton, put on a master class this weekend on the shows. On Meet the Press, etc. He did a really good job, and I hope Gabrielle.
I think he's the best Trump surrogate at this point. All right, we got reports now on the ground from our correspondents. First, New Hampshire. Michael Graham and I, who've been communicating back and forth about the mystery Harris visit. Mr. Graham, can you explain why the vice president's coming to New Hampshire? Or are you still in the dark there?
There we go. I will tell you, Mr. Halperin, I've been talking to Democrats, some that you know, and Republicans and people in Portsmouth, and it is the biggest mystery. What the heck she's doing here? I talked to two people who are doing polling for other things, not the presidential race, but they've included the Harris-Trump number in the Granite State. 8 elections, Democrats have won 7. This is not a swing state when it comes to federal elections. No one knows what the heck she's doing here. No one knows who this mysterious billionaire is. I mean, Portsmouth's gorgeous. Maybe she's coming to do some shopping and some great restaurants, but we got no idea.
Yeah.
You got tax-free.
We got tax-free. That's
tax-free.
true. But I mean, whoever said it earlier, I think it was you, Sean. You want to reach New Hampshire, you go to Boston, not the other way around. The money flows down. That's the place to go. And here's the other thing that's weird. One of the theories that's been floated around is, well, New Hampshire has the latest primary in the country because we have the dumbest system. So she could endorse, we got a tight governor's race. Maybe it's the Democrats' top target, replacing Sununu. Well, the primary's not till Tuesday, so she's a week early for that. She can't even do the big, hold up your hands. And Joyce Craig, the mayor of Manchester, and Maggie Goodlander, the DC person who's stealing the seat from poor Colin Van Osten up here. So we are all befuddled.
The funniest theory I've heard is it's for Maine. You know what? If you want to campaign in Maine, go to Maine.
Exactly.
All right. Stay on it. Come back tomorrow. Explain it to us. All right. This is our most august correspondent, former governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory. Governor, what's going on in North Carolina?
First of all, North Carolina, ads are everywhere by both sides, everywhere in all 4 major TV markets, including the Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina market, which bleeds slightly into the Asheville market. So both parties, and by the way, all during Meet the Press this week, whatever, Fox, they're on all the Sunday TV shows. So it's heavy here in North Carolina. Second, yesterday I got a mail out for the North Carolina Republican Party to independents person in my household. And it's very interesting. One side is negative Harris, the other side is pro-Trump. The headline of the pro-Trump is Kamala is lying about Trump's position on Project 2025, which I find very interesting, which means is that sticking at all? And
it is. We know
says,
from people in both parties it's sticking, even though the Republicans tonight, it's like stickier than anything I could ever imagine from a Heritage Foundation report.
Right. In
what's
fact,
on the other side?
The other side is Kamala Harris has failed weak and dangerously liberal as a San Francisco district attorney, as a California attorney general, as a U.S. senator, as a vice president, gives examples of all the things that she's done that's dangerously liberal in all those areas. So that is mailed to an independent voter from the North Carolina Republican Party, which is kind of interesting. Nowhere on the pamphlet does it mention the governor's race or any other race, which is probably hurting Trump. I think Trump's staying away from the governor's race here, which is very interesting. By the way, I do have a question for Tim. Is it true, according to Daily Mail, that Harris is now wearing headphones when she gets out of her car, like the quarterbacks of the NFL do, so they don't have to answer questions? It's brilliant.
I know
it's wrong, but it's brilliant. I hope there's no national security event while she's got her headphones on.
I know it's always going to be a good question when it starts with, is it true according to the Daily Mail? So I take your question.
It is funny. I mean, I hope there is no attack on her life where the Secret Service has to say duck or anything.
I think she's got that mode where you can hear a little bit of what's going on. Governor, love that you brought us the flyer. I love tracking flyers and direct mail. I once was on a panel with Anita Dunn, advisor to all Democrats, and I proposed there should be some way to you have to register these documents before you can send them out, so voters can scrutinize them and know who's paying for them. She laughed.
I agree with you.
At that.
Direct mail.
She laughed uproariously.
Direct mail is very, very effective near the ends of campaigns because you can about say anything. I've been burned on them many times. And
nothing else comes in the mail anymore. So anyway, if you live in a battleground state as the governor does and you get some direct mail, please raise your hand, hold it up, show it to us, maybe even take a picture and text it to us so we can show it full screen, because I love tracking those. As the governor suggested, you hear some of the most interesting messages. And as far as I know, guys, back me up here, that's the first defense I've seen in terms of paid that Republicans have played on Project 2025, right?
Yeah, and
Anybody-
this was probably
anybody
you think they did it probably 2 weeks ago. We're just getting it now.
Yeah.
So they were
Yeah.
concerned, and Forbes says Trump disavows Project 2025 in one of
Must be true then. If Forbes says it, must be true.
Well,
And of course, North Carolina is not just any party, because the national party is run by a North Carolinian, and the deputy chair, co-chair, Lara Trump's also from North Carolina, sort of. So they probably had a pretty big oversight of that. Yes, Sean.
So, Governor, of the 7 states, Tim and I both agreed that North Carolina was the 7th of the 7 most likely states to go for Harris. Do you agree with that assessment?
No, I would move it up, mainly
How high?
because I'd move it to the middle of the pack at least, because you've got the 4 metro areas. You've got Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte, Asheville, and now Wilmington. And there's a whole new group of people, as I stated last week, who have come in since COVID. And I don't think we know the real numbers in North Carolina on either side, because of all the new voters that have come in primarily from the Northeast. We don't know if they're liberal or conservative.
Those four metro areas are like Somerville, Massachusetts. They're just filled with a bunch of liberals. Or maybe
the beach areas we really don't know about, which there's been an invasion there too. Are you allowed to use the word invasion?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. If you're a Republican, you better
just don't say bloodbath.
But the Wilmington area is all the new people moving to the beaches, mainly retirees moving from the Northeast. Incredible, just like Hilton Head, just like Savannah, just like Florida. We don't know who those people are, and it'd be interesting if someone's looking at the data on who's moving here and what are their voting patterns. Because big project, big and worthwhile project. Governor, thank you. Come back often. All right. Thanks for everybody who participated. Sorry we didn't get to all the hands that are up. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be on tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and you'll get a notification about how to watch that. And who's going to be on with me, and we'll talk about what's occurred in the interval in between 9:30 Eastern and 8 Eastern. Gentlemen, anything you want to say? Closing remarks, final sayings.
I'll be on at 6. Tune in.
Tim, when will we see you next?
Yeah. I was going to say, still working on creating my own show. Stay tuned.
Okay, who makes the shirt you're wearing, Tim?
Who
makes that shirt?
I think this is it's called Vince. I will actually. We'll start every show with. I'll just read you the tag on my clothes.
Just FYI, that's not a great video shirt. The stripes kind of flare, so don't wear it on CNN.
I'm still working on it.
All right, thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel, 9 a.m. Eastern time, right here for the morning meeting.